these geniuses, not in this content. When you began to investigate a little mind, a little bit of Freud, what was something that grabbed your attention a lot?
Seeing is first is where did the siempre take place? Making Jews was always segregated. So in the face of segregation, having a proactive attitude other than you have everyone against you, being able to stand out and be a brilliant person, because outside of all that, he was a brilliant person within his field. First he was a doctor, and then he dedicated himself to the neurology part, the study of the mind, and he was always focused there. So excel and study and be within a segregated group. Well, Jews have always been a segregated group, but many years ago, when it was in the 19th-20th century, it was much more with wars and segregation then. Leaving this means that if you do not first have a knowledge of your value as a person, you let yourself be longed for and stand out, and being visible to everyone for your effort is to be applauded because it was always segregated.
That's right, and he could be resilient because on many occasions he had to escape from not only to contain oneself in segregation, but also to escape the dangers that the Nazis generated logically, right? And the thing that really caught my attention about Sigmund Freud was because in order to understand him a little more, we also have to understand the time in which he lived and what social and ethical classes existed in those times. Not what surprised you to see that, for example, we're talking at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, we are talking, for example, women did not have rights. That is, they are not seen as they are today. Thank God, no. What was the impact of this man's being in high? You could say on a high social standard, no.
Yes, let's see first. He lives in a society, clearly. In Vienna, very cultural, very rich and tasty, I think.
I think Vienna at that time was the cultural center, considered the cultural center of Europe.
Yes, there were many minds, variants, spectacular universities in terms of education, and it was an era of the big brother and him. Apart from that, always older brothers have to carry that big cross of that many times you have to tell your father the same or also help support the family. But he also had some good parents who saw his wisdom exploited. Apart from that, as we said, it was being segregated. They were always persecuted. So live in that anguish that wars could happen, about going through all that. For me, it was a battle and a last leap from day to day, and excelling at that is spectacular. It is being recent, forming a different awareness of how you have to change in order for your environment to change. Because in the end, we may be in the worst environment, but we are the ones who have to change.
That's right. And we also have to think that in these moments of segregation where there was a lot of discrimination towards him, towards his origins, towards his family, how he began to develop, perhaps wondering why these impulses exist. No, because people react as if they didn't think, as if it were something innate or primitive of the human being.
Yes, because to see a person who has always attracted the mind, thought, human behavior a lot, because within this he remembers that there is always one, that the one who leads, that is the one who generates the cascade effect, a reaction. For others to move, many times you only need one person. For a mass to follow that thought or that way of acting, then stand and watch. That makes a person see or try to know what happens to the mind, so that they first let themselves be guided. So let them go to the precipice, but let them be guided. And another is the personality, or what happens in the mind of the person who creates these thoughts so that they multiply en masse in different masses. In other words, you have to have the power of conviction that your twisted ideas are taken as positive, and that many people come to believe in you and follow you. Of course, that is knowing how to try to understand the human mind, what happens to it, and why it allows itself to be influenced, and why you are a leader.
Of course, he saw how, for example, the rules justified in instinct, not then, And based on that, they made the decision to do or follow these leaders of that then. But what's also interesting about Sigmund Freud is understand that, for example, in his time, sexual ethics was a great one.
For Taboo,
The concept of taboo was notably influenced by the significant focus on sexual issues, shaped by the lack of birth control pills and limitations on family planning, which sparked debates about societal norms. There was no such control. Then the woman was always, as they say, the vulnerable point, the weak point, and was not accepted the same as the man. But most important were sexually transmitted diseases like syphilis. That was one of the topics where, for example, Freud understood that you had to have a sexual ethics beyond that to not be able to fall prey to these sexual diseases. That's why he was so. It was not only taboo, but if we go back to history, no. Where did syphilis come from? It came from, that is, from America. When the Spanish, British invaders went, they contracted syphilis, just as when they colonized, they brought east, chickenpox, measles, not these diseases. Likewise, when syphilis A arrived in Europe, it also had a resounding change. The emergence of syphilis in historical context shifted perceptions of sex, complicating views about intimacy due to the brutal effects of the disease, which symbolize deeper cultural taboos.
help us continue to embrace these human experiences and explore more about ourselves and others by just subscribing. If you like our content, definitely like, comment, share it. But also, if you want to be part of our podcast, all you have to do is leave a comment and tell us what you want to talk about. Remember, this is the platform for the people, and we're here to explore those life experiences that are very unique to you and to everyone else. Don't forget, subscribe.